and we are looking at, first of all, we'll do the news, then we'll do some practice, and then I'll talk about my projects, what I'm working on, and I think that's fairly representative of what's going on with people who are advancing. Okay, so I'll jump straight into, and this time we have some news which are out there available. So news are not groundbreaking. There is nothing special unless you guys bring me the links and they will say, hey, you missed this. But in any case, so first of all, there was an announcement from OpenAI, and the announcement said that there are a few changes. The changes are by now here. I see them, at least I do. And what it promises is that everybody has access, and with 8K. What is this 8K? That is the 8,000 tokens. What are the tokens? That is whatever you say as each individual question. You take and words. So maybe your question is 5 words. That's about 5 tokens. If your question is about, well, not exactly, because there are a bit more tokens. Let's say your question is maybe 4 words, and that's 5 tokens. Well, by the same token, pun intended, here you have a long question. Maybe you have a question that is 2,000 words, and that will be maybe 3,000 tokens. So now your limit is 8K, 8,000 tokens. How can you ask such a long question? That is because when you just talk to ChatGPT, there are quite a lot of things that are hidden and you don't see them, but it remembers your conversation. That's one of the things. Let's open ChatGPT here. And we'll be back to that window. We will also look at the changes, but you see, it's remembering whatever you talked about, and I usually clean it. Usually it's very long list of things we talked about, but I try to remove the old ones. Okay, so let's say you were talking about something that interested me, and that was part of my project, and then you can ask another question that is related to whatever we were talking about. Right? I said, how about, let's say we were talking about this, how about a put method, which it makes no sense in this context, but I will still do it. How, or maybe just even say put verb. Okay, it will immediately understand what I'm talking about. That put verb is reflecting of that, and then we'll keep talking. Well, how is that? How does it do that? That's because behind the scenes, behind this browser, it collects the previous conversation, which otherwise it wouldn't even remember, and sends that conversation as part of my question. So I don't see it, you don't see it, but that question is accompanied by previous history. They might do something else, but when you write your own applications, then you do send those additional things. Now, where was it? You send, let's say, the history so that it would remember. It's up to you. And when you are creating your own applications, you send all those thousands of words. That's why it is important. That's what it means to you, those 4K. Now, some people eventually will get 32K. Then they also say that it's if you have ChatGPT Plus. Now, that was with an unusual condition of you already paid at least $1 to them. I don't know why they chose this. It just sounds funny, like the guy puts a little bit of money where his mouth is, just a little bit. Besides, ChatGPT Plus. Now, you might notice that I am on ChatGPT Plus. That doesn't show here, but if I do new chat, it will probably will plus, right? Here, I'm not exactly sure what this plus gives, but now they're giving something. They say that we'll get that with a, seems like usage cap. In other words, some news that you can look up on the conditions, and the limitation is out. There was a limitation, and I don't see that limitation. Another thing that they added is a few sample questions. So that's just a design decision, and I've seen other platforms that suggest something. I guess they measured and they found that it's a little bit intimidating when there is nothing else. For example, I have, as you may remember, a Moses AI that is trained on my summaries of 2,700 pages of the Talmud. So it has the Moses AI interface, but it is intimidating. No suggestions, no idea how to talk to this. So they give you an idea that maybe it's a good way to give some additional prompts. That's as far as chit chat about the news. Okay. Then another interesting news was this here, that more and more stuff is coming, suggested prompts, all of that you can read. You have these links here. So I just noticed that there are more and more. What I'm interested is not specific things that changed, but the fact that it's changing very often, and something is improving, something is increasing. Like when you came and we talked about self-driving cars and how these cars are not, for example, reacting to the medical emergency car coming in, you're supposed to clear the way and they don't know. Well, that's fixable, right? They will fix it. That is what you get from all these announcements that are often current. And that's all the news that I have. If you have any news, you'll put them on the chat. Now, I also wanted to offer you a couple things. First of all, we're doing usually a lab every time we come to this webinar. We're doing a lab, and then I will show what I'm working on, because that is typical of the development process. So first, a lab. To get this lab, all you do is click here, and you will get it under my repository, and that will be the right away Python lab. Now, we did a couple before, it's open, and you can run it. It's very much connected to one of the courses I was taking. So it's one of the Andrew Ng courses, and he publishes more and more. Last time we discussed how exactly, if you are in the production, you did your AI. So now you need to remember, what is it that you did? What was your test? Announce it to the whole team. So you're in a very production environment of improving your AI. And last time we talked about the new course that they just published. That's coming. That's coming next week, probably, for you and for me, because I'm in one of the projects. I'm at that stage where we're going to improve the quality. The only thing is that I wanted to productize it. I wanted it to bring into the enterprise strength environment. I'll show you how I'm doing it. And then I will be able to do this improvement on the quality. So 1 week delay. But that's what we did last time. What I'm doing now is a lab to summarize it. Now, I will download that, and I offer you to do the same thing. So if you click, you can download that. You see it's downloading O3 summarizing I, P, Y, and B, and I will find it in downloads right here. That's the one. All right. So in order to run it, you can either run it locally and set up your environment and all of that, which you would do if you're developing. You would probably want it local. But if you are just fresh coming to this lab, then a very easy way to run it is on Colab. So what you do is you open it on Colab. There you are. And I will take that link, Colab link, and I will give it to you here on chat. Well, on chat, yes, but also in the run file. Well, I said in Colab, so why don't I add the link here? That will be the link to Colab. You can click here and then go to the lab. I will also put it on our chat. Okay, so with that, you can open this Colab and then you can cancel this pop-up dialog and you do File, Upload Notebook, then choose My File, and that was this summarized. Okay, we're going to run it in a second. You also can run it if you are there. And we have 14 participants, so quite a lot of them might run. I don't have virtual machines for you guys, but we have the Colab environment, which is great because you can do it anytime, as opposed to my virtual machines, which would be canned. They would be prepared for you and you would be able to run them, but they would disappear eventually. So now if you're interested in doing something practical, that's this. Now, the only thing is that when you run it, then you will see that when you're trying to import OpenAI, it will error out. And that is because it's not installed. Okay, I can show you, I can demonstrate that if I either do Shift Enter or if I click on Run, it will say, well, I don't know where that is. Well, that's actually very good because if you see that, you will be nonplussed, you will see it, you'll say exclamation point pip install OpenAI, and it will install it for you. Oh, why? Okay, it will install for you right then and there. And what you gain is an additional advantage. You are not surprised, you are not scared of those errors that come up. The next one is this one. Well, here, what we do is in the original lab, we'll go to the .env file, which is hidden, and that's how you get correct way to OpenAI key. But I will give you the key. In other words, you don't need that. Let's ignore all of that, take it out, and instead simply get the key. Put the key right here, which is, of course, terrible security breach. But no big deal because we're only doing it now and later on we'll remove that. Now, how do I give you the key? Like this. We go to platform OpenAI and in this, and you don't have to do that, but you can simply watch how I do it. I'm saying view my API keys. And today is August 11. So I will call it August 11 key. I will create one right here. I'll say 811, right? And it has created this key. So I'm copying this key and I'm going to use it in 1 second. It's here, right here. So I'm saying commode, paste, and I'm done. If I do this, it will actually run and will be, it's trying to install it again. But here's my key. Now that I hope wasn't hard, but it showed you that you can fix it right away. You're becoming more comfortable with the Colab environment and more comfortable with the whole idea that something might not work. And here I'm cosplaying Andrew Anko said, a good engineer, he says, oh, you couldn't have made this mistake. I saw it wasn't working, but I thought you did it on purpose so that I would fix it. So I'm doing the same thing. The next thing is what we're going to do here. We're going to do exercises with the summarization. Of course, summarization is very easy nowadays. You just go to ChatGPT and ask it to summarize. But let's look at how you script it, how exactly you do it. So this one is a convenience function. It's get completion that you can use everywhere. By the way, it uses GPT-3. I would prefer GPT-4. So I will just say GPT-4 like this, and it should work. Okay, so it understood, it recorded this function, it's going to use it. Now, the crown achievement of our lab is summarization. So first of all, we tell it, here's the text to summarize. Please note those three quotes, this here and this here. That is a Python way of quoting in a convenient format. So it will, unusual three quotes, will understand, just take the text as is. So, okay, I'm clicking on run here, and I got a variable called product review. Now I can do a little variation. I can add one code cell here, and I can say print product review. Since you have this variable right here, then you should be able to print it. Let's try to do that. Yes, it took that input that I gave it, and it printed it just right here, quoting it with the back end, which means join it together. Then I want to tell it now, do the work, do the summarization. What is it about? About the panda toy. Obviously, that's a very toy example and good to work with. So now we're saying prompt. Your task is to generate a short summary of a product and additional details. Here is the product. Now, that's the art of creating prompt engineering. That's my prompt, but it should include the actual text. You can probably do it straight in ChatGPT. I never tried, and I find it inconvenient when you're in ChatGPT. You need to say, here's my text, but don't do anything as yet. I'm giving you the prompt. So at first, it says the text, and it begins to react to your text. You can't stop it. You cannot say, wait until you hear me, what I want you to do. In this scripting environment, you can. That is what is nice about the scripting, plus the fact that there are no limits. If you're doing the scripting, then you're talking to GPT API directly, and there you're paying. Right now, I'm paying for you as a courtesy if you're running that with my key, and it's just more program as well. So we did it. We created the text that we want to work with. We said that's the prompt, that's what we want you to do. And now we're saying use this convenience function called get completion, which is equipped to handle my prompt and my input and do whatever I ask it to do. So it did it pretty quick. You saw that I ran it. If I run it again, I will probably get the same. That is because the temperature by default is set to 0. Temperature controls how much spontaneity you give to ChatGPT. At 0, you're trying to say don't change your answers. Let's look at this temperature right here. You see, right here. So for fun, let's change this. I think it is between 0 and 1. So I'm changing it to 1. Now, if I want to take that change to take effect, I'm running that cell again. Now it took it with 1. Then the same thing, I have the product and I'm asking for a product review. Okay, give me the result. Let's continue. Now it's giving me a different product review. The review praises the Panda plush toy. Okay, let's do it again. It should change its mind. The reviewer bought a Panda plush. It's a different approach, right? Do it just once more. The custom bought a Panda. So we see it changes a little bit. For production, we might want to keep it at 0. For experiment, just the other way around. And that is the essence. That's it, right? Now, that lab goes on and it says, what if you want to talk about shipping and delivery of the product? Okay, so you tell it, summarize the review in at most 30 words and focus on aspect that the mentioned shipping and delivery. Now, that is where the magic begins. If you didn't notice that you were talking to AI, that's very smart, then here you definitely will notice because now you're giving more instructions. Let's try to run it. And it's a short summary, at most 30 words. It might go over a little bit, just like humans would. They would say, yes, you said 30, but I thought 32 would be okay. So it might go a little bit more, but not necessarily. It does or should concentrate on shipping and delivery. I said it, now let's read it. The Panda plush arrived a day earlier than expected, suggesting efficient and ahead of scheduled delivery by the shipping department. That's perfect, right? Perfect for what we wanted. And then maybe I will not run the whole thing because you can run it yourself. Just notice that you can summarize now, talk about the price. I ran it before, so you can see the answers. The price may be a little high. Try extract of summarize. How do we do it? Extract the information relevant to shipping. Well, let's see what it extracted. Just said the product arrived a day earlier than expected and stopped there. Summarize multiple product reviews. There you need to find out, well, this is Python. How do I do a loop in Python? It's a basic exercise in any programming languages. And by itself, it's not very interesting. Just shows you mechanics of how you would do multiple reviews, but you're not learning anything about AI at this point, only about programming. And the fact that, okay, you can summarize 1,000 of them. That would be one possible case for the use of, if not other models, then at least the opening. For example, the makers of Spark, they're called Databricks. Let's go to Databricks. Here. Well, they also want an AI, MML, large LLM, right? A large machine model, but they really don't need it because they are a big data tool. So what did they invent? Well, they also have a large model, but what they say is that, you know what, you can exercise this summarizations 1,000 in a cluster, and it will be very fast. Well, I personally think that's a weak use case, but here is an example of how you can do it, right? You can do it in a loop, and if it's not fast enough, if you want to summarize millions of them, then here you are, put them on the cluster. Okay, that was the second step of what I wanted to cover in our webinar, and that was first, a little bit of news, and there were no great news compared to the previous webinar that I ran is quantum computing. And in quantum computing, there were enormous big news published just yesterday that they discovered a special property of a special particle called muon. And just because there is a discrepancy, they see a completely new universe and completely new physics. We don't have any such groundbreaking things here. Instead, we went to Colab. We looked at the lab, and I invited you to do this lab. So I'm stopping the screen share for a second, because then I usually get some reaction. I'm allowing everybody to talk. And I'm saying hello, hello everybody. Verifying the chat. Yeah, universe has evolved. Yes, that's because John, who says that he was on the previous webinar. But since we don't have, no, John wasn't. All right, sorry. Okay, so Shebek, you had
No,
the chance to.
I've been into quantum computing for the last year. I took class last July. My biggest concern in the class was basically on error correction, because that seemed to be still hasn't been corrected.
Then you should really come to the other webinar as well. But thank you very much for that. And since we kind of touched it, I'll show you just one picture.
Send me the link and that'd be great.
It's right here. It's on the desktop, and that's where they do it. It's in Chicago, so one of my favorite places. The Fermi Lab, that is an amazing architecture as well. So Fermi Lab, it looks like this. Somewhere in Chicago, you can see that. But going back to the slide, and then they talk about things like what you should say. I found that it's amazing. It's a scientific text, but it's talking about a sea of invisible particles that comes out of existence and comes back into existence for 1 billionth of a second, and then they do something with it. So sorry to go on the side track, but since we mentioned it, okay. But coming back, what we're doing is, first of all, the news, and I compared this news to other news. Then we did a lab, this lab in Colab, and the last thing that I want to do is, well, a project update, because I think it's interesting. I think that there are hundreds and thousands of people who are trying to bring AI into their application. And I believe that is how it will go. We all can go to ChatGPT and be amazed, but after that, okay, it's one of your additional tools, and you maybe use it against instead of Google. But what's next? What next is you need some applications, and you need your applications to benefit. So in my case, I'm working with a specific application that's called Caseify, that's for lawyers, and I'm putting AI there. That is the current API that I have. Let us say the lawyer comes and he wants to ask, did the guy have a gun? And that's a real case I'm talking about. Nobody in the courtroom remembered what the 200 200 hours recording said. And ChatGPT happily said, no, he didn't have a gun. The gun was in his car, and that changed the sentence by two years in prison. So that's my API. And as you can see, it is fast API. And you can ask a question, you can try it, but that runs on one specific machine, that virtual machine. And that, of course, is not scalable. So what do you do when you're going to implement it more in production? Well, what you do is you create the same kind of API, but in Amazon Gateway. So what you need to do is go to Amazon, and you create a Lambda that will do your work. And then you create the API that will give out to the world the API, right? Because what I gave them is everything in one place. Here it is, everything is available, but it's running on one virtual machine. Now in here, oh, where did it go? We must find it. Well, we will open. So go to Amazon, and now I'm showing how you do it in real life, in production, which agrees with my idea that you're adding this AI to many areas of your application, and you do it the right architecture. So here's my API gateway. That's where you do it and you show what you give to the world. So there's my Caseify AI, and that is where you set up the API. For example, you're saying describe index, and that describe index is a get. And this get has that particular, I would say, scheme of execution, step after step. What happens when you send your request? What happens when you prepare to go to Lambda? That's your Lambda itself. And now you want to test it to see what happens. So you deploy it somewhere, and here it is, that's already deployed. Now you're saying get and run, and it should work. Waiting. I'm waiting till Lambda finishes, but now Lambda finished. What is that? That's very important, even though it looks like gobbledygook. That's pinecone index with all of the details that you need to know about this pinecone index. And pinecone is this additional component. So first you take your query, then you run it against this pinecone index, which acts as your private search engine, private syntactic search engine, and then you combine these results with your query and send it to ChatGPT. So right now I'm making it production, and okay, that worked, but why that didn't work? Because that was the gateway, the API that you give out. Where is the Lambda who does the work? Well, Lambda is found right here. Lambda is right here, and all my AI Lambdas are starting with AI. And I think I was looking at describe index. That's already working. So you put your code in here, that's your code, and then you make it run. You have a test, and you can test it right here, and it should give you pretty much the same result as a Lambda, because now you see what's inside. That ran pretty fast, maybe because it already was run by me just a second ago. Maybe it even cached. Well, okay, I showed you that, but I didn't show you the code. Where is the code? So I see some entries in the chat. Good, and I will address them in a second, but I really want to show you now the code. The code is here, and what I've done is a directory per each individual Lambda. So I have the clean namespace Lambda, I have describe index, that's the one I'm showing you, and I'm working on ask a question about the case. And what I do is I, of course, create, like I showed you describe case. So let's look at the Python code that I want to package. Okay, that's the Python code. I'll tell you briefly what it does. It's the Lambda handler, which you need to add. This Lambda handler collects the input and then calls your function, whatever your function is, that will describe the index. So we're not going into this right now, but then I have a package little script, which I very unprofessionally wrote myself. And it, in the end, having installed everything, because that's Lambda for you, you need to install the packages every time. So you combine all of that, zip it up, and then upload that zip into S3 on Amazon. Then when that is run and you want to update that Lambda, what you do is go back to code and you're saying upload my code from S3, and that has to be the bucket. So in my case, I said do it, and that's the bucket. Now I will not do it now because of one interesting thing. On Mac, it doesn't work the same as on Ubuntu. Somehow there's something wrong and it's not packaged right. So no sweat, I don't do it on the Mac. Instead, I expect that to run on Ubuntu. That's almost a compiled code. So you're not surprised that it should be compiled in the same environment as what you're running. That's the whole story. A very high level and tedious. Tedious but brief, using the language of Shakespeare, because there were all the details, but now we can go back and ask a generic question, because Alan said how to keep it hallucinations from being viewed by attorneys. Do they always need to verify the reference? That's an excellent question. I'm glad you asked, and we're going to try to address that. And is there a general approach to do this? So I see this. I also see John offering his comment. So let's look at what Alan has said. Well, there was a story how one lawyer just blindly put it into ChatGPT, and it invented lots of case law that didn't even exist. Today, perhaps it will not do this, but you can't rely on that. So yes, you need to add a few things. You need to add links so that anytime that it quotes from a precedent or gives you case law, you should be able to easily check it. And not only just check as a matter of fact, that's what lawyers should do using some other source. No, that's inconvenient. Your AI should be able to point exactly to the law. That's number one. So you need to massage all of your work, and that's where I'm coming to. You need to add case law. It should be under your control. That case law should be, well, it is coming as an instruction to the jury, which has 2,000 pages. So you need to break it into individual paragraphs, keeping the source reference so that it would always know where did it find that particular interesting fact with the reference to that. That's number one. And that will give you a chance to do good. But in addition, you're right about hallucinations, and you will have to work on improving the quality. That's what I think is generally applicable result, is that when you're putting AI into your application, there will be a lot of work on what you do to add value to just ChatGPT. So in my case, for example, one lawyer says, I gave it the document and asked, was the guy drunk or no? And it didn't give the answer. Meanwhile, the document has the level of alcohol in his blood. Well, correct. I noticed that the document was a paper OCR'd, not OCR. It required OCR. And then it was upside down. So the law is very correct. It's a smart AI. It should be able to figure it out. In my case, I had to turn it upside down, and then it worked. But that's a lot of debugging work that you are going to do in your applications, that I'm doing in my applications. And therefore, I hope that, Alan, that answers your question. So the general approach, I would say, a general approach is that what you want to create an add-on value, a value add, and that is the general approach. You need to work. Work is, I believe, is a general approach. I think you see from all these examples that there is no generic approach to substitute your own work. We also see that John suggests I would figure the humans would have to review the training data, understand the prompts, question to ask the lawyer, and will have to review the result. So here there is an approach to start with. You take all the documents that you are uploading, you break them, you massage them, and then you upload. So that's not a human part. That's what the machine does. But then starts your work. You need to, for example, right now, what is going into the system is somewhere inside the system. I really need to see and debug the whole process. So that's what I'm doing, by the way. I'm saying to the program who's working with that part of things, and I'm saying, give me the result. What is it that you're sending? Give me that text. Okay, there is a link here, and work costs money. Absolutely right. So not easy, but what's important is that the lawyers are amazed. They say that just an example that I gave you. It was a long speech by somebody, and ChatGPT just answered the question. Like you can ask, did the police violate any rule? And they are. That is a complete investigation for a day or two, and it gives you the result right away. Okay, so thank you very much for the questions, and let us see where we are. I was showing you where I am with my projects, and that I think is my most active projects right now. I will be showing you more later on, but since that is the one where I made the whole progress, I chose to show that. Yes, your question. No, no question. Okay, guys. So I think I covered all that I promised. I'll stop showing the screen, and that may provoke some questions or may result in some discussion that usually is, at least I need to stop talking and stop showing. So I'm silent. Okay, but if there are still no questions, then I think we're good. So I want to wish you a great weekend, and great month and a great year to be on the right side. Okay, and no jokes about eternity. So be well. Thank you very much, and see you next time. Goodbye. Thank you, Louis. Thank you, Alan. Thank you, Olga, Jared, Jay, Ken. Thank you, everybody.